The next person I'm going to talk to here is Karina Quintanilla. She is the mayor of Palm Desert, California. She was elected to the city council in 2020, and because they rotate who's mayor among the council members, this past December, she was appointed mayor for the next year. She's also, I believe, the first Latina mayor in the city's history. Let me bring her in here. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. It is morning my time. I know it's different time zones, so just greetings and happy Monday 2.0.
Good
I know
morning
some
to you.
people are morning people, some are not, but I'm just happy to be here and thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. And can you do us a favor and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in running for public office yourself?
Sure thing. Long story short, I come from a long line of women that are movers and shakers and are driven to action based on the things that we see that need to be changed or the things that need to be supportive or supported. My great grandmother, for example, brought running water, electricity, telephone, and founded the first health clinic in her very small town. And coming from those humble beginnings where you see the need and you know that you can be stronger together. In the city of Palm Desert, I was made aware by a former advisee. My previous career was an academic advisor, and she reached out and said, I know this is a big ask, but would you be willing to sue the city under the California Voter Rights Act? And I said, where do I sign? She was surprised that I didn't need convincing or an understanding of what it was. So we sued the city and campaigned during the pandemic, took 61% of the vote, becoming the first Latina and the youngest woman elected. And just actually yesterday, I announced that I will be seeking re-election for another 4 years. And I tell folks, not just a cultural and linguistic diversity, but economic diversity. My background is very different in that scope. In terms of getting to how I got here as a non-religious person, being that a lot of Latinos are born Catholic. We're Catholic by birth, not necessarily by choice. And you get the CEO Catholics, right? The Christmas and Easter only. And it was the big conversation within the family.
Can you actually, I know this is always a lengthy story for anybody, but I'm wondering if you could tell people about how you made that switch yourself and how you dealt with your family, and then if it has impacted any of the races you've run.
That's actually where I was going to
Yeah.
go with that. One of my cousins is openly an atheist, and she was even featured on the LA Times and said, by the way, when I refer to the aunt that shamed me, that's your mom I was talking about. And it's been something we just kind of dance around and don't talk about in my family, but we made the agreement that we can't tell grandma. And that would be very disappointing to grandma, having been raised hyper Catholic. I mean, to the point that some of my earliest memories are in church. It was a very difficult thing to say, but that's on the family side of it. In the community, part of my philosophy as a leader is, honestly, I don't even wear my name tag most of the time. I want people to see me as a human being, as a member of the community, and then later they may find out, but I don't want them interacting with just the label or the name badge. In the same way that I don't bring in specifically, these are my views, this is what I don't believe, but it does come into some of the sessions where I'm in a position or on a board. So for example, read everything, okay? We have a lot of things that come through in the fine print. I was on a board where they were asking for $10,000 for language translation services. And being that English is my second language, that was crucial for me. The funds were to be used for a birth choice center. And the choice was dissuade from even talking about abortion and the lies about having a RU486, the abortion pill reversal, which we know is not something you can reverse. And asking for funds from a foundation that gets a lot of public funding to use that led to a pretty lengthy discussion within that nonprofit board. And that's where, as community leaders and looking at the 501c3s, right? Not all of them are built the same. Not every church is the same. Not all churches are monoliths. Some are humanitarian in their missions, and others are evangelical, and who and how they engage in the community. Recently, I had a conversation or an email that came in, somebody requesting a peace poll, but specifically they said it as a result of what had happened in Israel and Hamas, and presenting it from that perspective of a religious ground and saying, you know what, separation of church and state, and how to navigate that perspective and point versus the four others on the council. There was an incident, not an incident, but an occasion where there was a school that is a religious school. And I asked, their curriculum does include religious text and theology, and they wanted public funds to participate in an event. And I said, this is something that I don't believe in. And there was the discussion with the city attorney, and finding out where they said, well, this may be perceived as discrimination against Judaism, and if we don't do this, and how do you manage that middle ground? Because then we get into whether someone is culturally Catholic versus religiously practicing in the same, with cultural Judaism versus a practicing Judaism. So those fine identities of whether, again, you're going to church on the holidays or for Christmas, or if you just celebrate Christmas and you enjoy the celebration without the core religious view of it. And that's, I think, where we have to be firm in what we believe. And I heard earlier, trying to look at the notes that I had while I was reading. So Bob had mentioned being on the school board, and school board gets overlooked a lot. We talk about national, state, municipal, but the school board is a really big crux of where some of these issues are. I mean, you'd almost think that we're back in 1925 with the Scopes trial, the monkey trials in Tennessee. And the school boards have the ability to help drive curriculum and who's being included, who's being shut out, who we're silencing, to go back from the traditional values, right? So the tradition of who you're putting back in the closet and who you're relegating to the kitchen. So again, looking at where we're going, how we're getting there, and how we can be more inclusive of the believers and the non-believers. So for example, in advocating for the unsheltered, whether you call them unsheltered or unhoused, which I think has more of a dignity versus just the homeless. I'm sure they had a home at one place. They have somewhere that they may call home in the meantime, and creating an interfaith alliance to create that, because then you're using all of the church networks and the people that donate. Not all of them are tax shelters, right? Some of them really are doing this from a humanitarian standpoint, but to be able to work with those in that crux and say, but we also have to have secular advocacy. Some of these people may not want to go to a shelter if, when you walk in, and I went to that one, you've got a 60, 70 foot cross.
Sure.
You're possibly someone that is experiencing religious trauma that got you there. For example, we have a very high LGBTQ plus overrepresentation in our area that are homeless. And so some of them are there because their families say either, don't say gay, pray the gay away. And now you're telling me that you're going to offer me a bed and a warm meal, but you're going to pray over me. And how do we support everyone along the way?
It sounds like one of the things you're saying is, one, it pays to be skeptical in some ways, because you're reading through all that fine print and everything, making sure the right things are being done. But also you have this awareness of what people may have come from that I think I don't hear that much from a lot of religious politicians at any level. And it's not that they can't be. There are plenty of amazing ones, but having that perspective is really important when you're having these discussions, because obviously you're not trying to exclude faith groups from getting involved in helping do these humanitarian things. Speaking of which, when I was reading up on your bio, one of the things that was such a pleasant surprise that I learned about you, whenever I read like politicians, like the about pages on their candidate pages, they talk about, sure, their family, maybe their church, something like that. One thing you've talked about a lot is how much blood you have donated, how much marrow you have donated, as well as your advocacy for organ donation. And I found that to be like really an extension of your own humanism. Can you talk more about that and why that's so important to you?
Absolutely. Just as Christiana said, thoughts and prayers don't fill potholes. Thoughts and prayers aren't always there. And, just like Jesus is at the Super Bowl, not just in the commercials, but people that are praying to recover money or make money. When they say, well, we're going to pray that, you get better because religion made you better. But what about all the people that died of the same diagnosis, right? Where are we looking at what makes us feel good to know that there may or may not be a greater energy, being, afterlife? That's all I know. Is I'm a good person in the today because that's all I know today. I'm not going to be a person based on what there is or is not in the tomorrow. As far as I'm concerned, heaven and hell exist here. Whether it's something that you've achieved, whether it's something you work for, whether it's where you ended up, those are things that exist here in the now and not the after. And for even still to this day, right? I don't make a lot of money individually, just as Christiana mentioned, we don't get paid a lot of money in elected office. So I don't have the money to give philanthropy, but my body is going to regenerate blood. And in 72 hours, you replenish your platelets. And some folks are able to give that and help with scarring, and it goes right over to the cancer center. So that is something that I go and I give my time. I have donated 18 gallons now. I've been an advocate for bone marrow donors, for the organ registry, especially with communities of color. Biracial, multiracial individuals have an even less chance of getting matched. So those are crucial for me to ensure that we are representing. Again, science is there. We support science, we support facts, and doing this collectively.
That's it. It's inspirational, and I think I'm seeing a lot of commenters say the same thing. Just to close this up, can you tell us about why ASCO is important to you and why you think people should support it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that having any space that cultivates leadership where you don't have to follow a set path, where it was mentioned before that sometimes churches are who bring the awareness of who they're pushing, who they're advocating to serve as a platform for the beliefs that they would like to continue. Just as Christiana mentioned, serving with Christian nationalists, I can't imagine how incredibly tough that must be. And sorry, I was thinking, and ADHD brought me in different directions. Okay, so the value of having a space that encourages folks and say, you don't have to do that. Part of leadership is knowing where to lead instead of follow. But you can't be a leader if there's no one to follow you. And a quick example in a contentious issue we had on the council, I finally had it with the arguing, and I said, okay, 4 of you are going in one direction. I don't mind being the thumb. I'll stand out on the side. City manager pulled me over after and he said, Karina, I don't want you to feel like the thumb. And I said, oh, but you're mistaken. You can't do anything without the thumb. The thumb grips, the thumb grabs, the thumb pulls. So it is okay to stand aside. It is okay to go to the component where you're standing out on your own. And as long as you can give the understanding of why, you can bring people along to listen to you. They don't have to agree. But part of what democracy is everyone coming together to be heard.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for telling people about you. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
Right now, the most updated information is on my website, elect, like election, elect, and my first name, Karina.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, and good luck with your re-election campaign as well.
Thank you. Health, happiness, and wellness to you, your loved ones, and all of those that are here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.